Hey, this is Dylan at Imperial Sportbikes. Today I'm going to go over the 457. It's been out for about a year, so there's a lot of things I wanted to touch on that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, but I still feel like not very many people know this bike. So I wanted to go over it in detail and why it's my favorite bike. Sorry, I hit the mic. Anyway, I wanted to go over why it's my favorite bike of the past couple of years. And also to go over some of the things that people complain about and to address those concerns. Because I was fortunate enough to ride it in places where probably not very many people have. That includes the track, canyons, and just regular street riding. So I'm going to go over all that today. This is going to be a longer video. And there's our new sign. Pretty cool, right? It's digital. Anyway, let's get started. So this is our 457 demo. It was actually the first RS we unboxed ever. So this is the first one to ever come out of a box. We've had zero issues with it at all. Nothing. I think it's got about close to 2,000 miles on it now. And you'll notice that there's a lot of aftermarket things on this guy. Some of this is Aprilia related, some of it's not. I'm going to go over everything that we've done to this RS, and man, is it super fun to ride. And the reason why is there's really three things as a part of the formula to make the RS just like an amazing motorcycle. I mean, the fanciest 400cc bike in existence. There's just a couple of things you have to do here on the American market to get to that point. And obviously, there's a lot of international customers that will have some questions as well. I'll try my best. The American bike is not Euro 5, so it's missing some of the things that the European bike has, but they're still pretty similar in most ways. Number one, the biggest upgrade you can make on your RS 457 is the quick shifter blipper unit. This is something that you can get installed at an Aprilia dealer because it requires the pad system to initiate it. Basically, how it works is this module connects to the ECU and gives you quick shifter and blipper. So the blipper down and the quick shifter up. What's cool about that is clutchless upshifts and downshifts, automatic rev matching. It is the future. It's something you'd usually only find on very expensive Italian motorcycles. Probably the biggest selling point to this bike is because it has a ride-by-wire throttle straight out of MotoGP. There it is right there. Partnering it with this gives you the complete sport bike. And in my opinion, this bike was designed for this to be installed anyway. So not having it is kind of a crime in my opinion, because the bike was designed for it and the bike is so much better with it on it. I think it just makes it a complete package. So as far as OEM goes, without going into warranty stuff territory, this is an RS 457 with the quick shifter is basically all you need. Now, if you're a little bit extra like me, I will go over the other things required. Number two is obviously an aftermarket exhaust. Mainly the SC Project S1 is my favorite. The cool thing about this bike is it allows you to hear the 270 crank in action. So it does not sound like a lawnmower like most motorcycles do in this class, which is good. It sounds like a real motorcycle. In fact, most people think it's a much bigger bike than it actually is. Even in photographs, it looks like a much bigger bike than it is. And I think that's pretty cool. The exhaust, obviously, because there is no slip joint on this motorcycle, you have to buy a full system, which is fairly pricey. There's a couple of good systems out there that are under $1,000, but most of the good systems are at least $1,000. And that's okay because they're well worth the money. Case in point, this S1 actually bends around on the inside there underneath the swing arm to create distance. So you don't lose any power like you normally would with short systems. The downside is full systems are expensive, and I do recommend having a shop do them because a lot of people forget to reuse the OEM exhaust gaskets, which is super duper common, unfortunately. And that's it as far as exhaust goes. Any name brand one will do. I don't recommend chopping one and welding one on. I do recommend getting one from a manufacturer that races, because that means you should gain power or at least keep the same amount of power. On that note, a longer can that comes out to here, that's your best chance of gaining power. It's not a guarantee though. Despite what any GSXR rider like myself will tell you, that we gained 40 horsepower with a slip-on, that's not actually true. But I'll go more into that in just a moment. Finally, the last upgrade, it's invisible. You don't know what it is. Keep in mind, these are used at your own risk, so remember that always. And that is a race map. Basically, what a race map does is, most of them are pretty much the same, but the idea is that they clean up the fueling and the air-fuel mixture to make a nice smooth, as you can see right there, a nice smooth throttle. In reality, especially here in America, this bike has a dead spot around 2,000 RPM. It's really easily felt. If you're fairly attuned to motorcycles, you will feel the dead spot. On that note, when you install a race map, basically what it does is smooth out that dead spot in the RPM band, so you have a nice crisp throttle all the way through, nice and smooth. And that is perfection. So once you've combined the quick shifter blipper with an exhaust and a race map, this bike is perfect in my book. Perfect. It's so good. Especially for a bike that's cheap on insurance, cheap on parts, cheap on tires. Like, the miles per gallon I get on this motorcycle has been the highest out of any motorcycle, even on the track. RSP4 is an incredible machine, but I will say the most fun I've had was on one of these and an SV650. Probably basically tied. But as far as having electronics that actually are good and not having to kind of jerry-rig a quick shifter with a throttle cable, because you can't get blip because it's a throttle cable, the SV loses points there. But that's why the RS is so much fun. And as a dad, it's easier to race on a budget, and when your bike already has all these things built in, holy cow, awesome. That's what I have to say. Just easy to load up in the trailer. Man, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And now I'm going to address a couple of the issues people say that the 457 has, that I actually tried to look into and work on and test for myself to see if, you know, what people are saying is true or not. Keep in mind, this is the American model, so I can't speak for any of the European models, but I'll do my best to try to accommodate that as I go through this. Okay, so we went over the race ECU, the exhaust, and the quick shifter. Really quick before I go over the main issues that people have with these bikes, and I'm going to try to address that, is a couple of things we have on our demo bike. This is an Aprilia OEM solo seat cowl. I think it's awesome. It has this cool like style race seat with the little cushion at the end, and it's really comfortable. This also has the passenger grab bar, which Americans have no idea what this is, and that's okay, because most Americans don't really have passengers on their motorcycle. I mean, it's designed for it. You absolutely can, no problem. A lot of Americans, we like to delete these because we're solo riders. We ride by ourselves. This still has the passenger pegs on it. The rear sets are OEM, and I really like these. I mean, on most bikes, I usually, my foot gets caught and will pull the rear set up with my race boot. Does not happen on this bike. I really like how stiff these are, and they still do move. But the OEM rear sets on this bike are, I guess, perfect for me, and I'm 5'8", so I don't know why this bike is a little bit small for me, but I fit really well on it. And then finally, 6mm spools. Aprilia's come with a drilled swing arm. Sorry, truck. Unlike most Hondas, which is so nice. That means you can do your chain maintenance or install lifters, whatever. Other than that, this bike has finally a tail tidy right here. Look at that. This is a New Rage Cycle tail tidy. What's nice about these is they just look super duper clean. And then here is the tail by itself with those with this Aprilia accessory upgrade, which are these grab bars and the solo seat cowl. Look how clean that looks. I mean, man. And you can actually see the subframe go in with the wheel, which is a weird thing, but I really like the way that looks. And I think everybody does. I mean, look at this. From a distance, you would have any idea that it's a 400cc motorcycle. Another thing to note is we do have the OEM Aprilia tank guards and tank pads. These aren't too sticky, but they served really well. I had zero issues at the racetrack with those. So they do actually work pretty good. And they look really clean. I mean, they do also say RS457, so that's good. I think it's really negligible, the difference between most Stomp Grip or Tech Spec. I think it's just really personal preference. I think any of them will work. And this bike now has basically every major manufacturer making stuff for it at this point. So should not be an issue for anyone. Finally, you may have noticed these are Evotech. This is just a slider, axle slider here. Main thing to note on this bike is these are actually RSV4 axle sliders that we added spacers to, because back when this bike came out, we didn't know what would work. So we made the RSV4 ones work. Obviously now they make specific sliders for this bike. The only thing we're missing are some frame sliders. R&G makes a really great pair of frame sliders. We're waiting for Evotech to make theirs as well. Right now, the only ones you can really get are the Apex frame sliders from R&G. R&G makes a lot of cool stuff for this bike already as well. So, something to consider. There is a spot for a OEM USB connector for the 457. So you can get one of those too, which is pretty cool. And in my opinion, as a modern sport bike, getting a USB connection, you can also get the multimedia unit for this bike. The multimedia unit will go into the subframe here, I believe on this side, and that's how you can connect your phone to the dash. So a lot of people ask me that, like, how the heck do I do that? Get my phone connection with all those additional settings. And that's really, you first need to get the MIA, the multimedia unit. In America, it does not come with it. It's a factory accessory that you can add. So the two factory accessories I recommend are the USB unit and the MIA. This bike does not have either at the moment. So there's your official mileage. We've got, oh, sorry, I thought it was closer to 2. We're at about 1,100 miles on it. Also, this. It's pretty good. Anyways, so this is the menu for the RS. Obviously, there's temp, there's voltage, there's miles to go before you need to get gas. There's your quick shifter blipper indicator. Obviously, if you don't have that, you won't see that. There's your kickstand indicator, temp of the motor, your outside temperature gauge, which is really cool, and time. This stuff over here is for the multimedia unit, if you have that installed and connected. Gear indicator, miles per hour, where your traction control is at and what mode you're in. To change said mode, you go here underneath the start-stop switch and you click it. Rain, Sport, and Eco, which is just an in-between of Rain and Sport. I recommend most people probably ride this on Sport at all times. That's me. If it's raining, put on rain mode, and if you're just chilling, put it on eco. Eco's a good in between. Now, this is like a show menu. This is a trip A and B menu, and a lap timer, obviously. Right here, this mode where you actually see the miles per hour and your RPM gauge is where you can adjust the traction control. You go down here, the up and down arrows will do it. So check this out. A lot of people don't know this. When you're at 1, you can hold it and disable it. So you can have no traction control if you want. Now, turn it back on. You just hit up. It will come back. There's 3 levels, obviously. If you're at 3, that's the highest level. I like to ride it at 2. That's usually where I ride it at. And if I'm at the track, I'll probably do 1. If I'm being really silly, I'll put it at 2. I don't usually ride it with traction control off because I've high-sided without TC, and it sucks, so I like to keep it on. There's your trip A and B, and that's pretty much it. Now, to get to the inside menu, you hold this right button here, and there you go. Shift light, which is just when it flashes. The rest of this you won't really deal with. Clock, units, backlight, I'd keep it at 10. Lap timer for the race mode. Service, just basically for the techs. You won't really mess with any of that. And then in vehicle, same here. This is just telling you the quick shifter to disable it. Essentially, you can. You don't really need to do that ever, though. I wouldn't. And then calibration is something yet again for the techs to use. That's pretty much it as far as the internals. Now, if you have the MIA unit, you're going to have a couple more options over there as well. Okay, first complaint. The big one I hear all the time are the OEM brake pads suck and brake fade on this lever. So the reality of a single caliper motorcycle is you don't want to have this lever too close to the throttle because basically what we found out when we were riding this at the racetrack is that if the lever's too close, it causes the whole thing to heat up and thus give you brake fade. So the solution is you need to back the lever out, right? So if the lever's further away from this, gives it more space to be compressed. Probably an issue they'll figure out in a later model year, but as long as your fingers can reach, if you back the lever out all the way when you're riding fast, that got rid of the brake fade. Because basically, I had about 4 or 5 laps where suddenly I was suddenly feeling some pretty intense brake fade. And my master tech, when I came in, was like, oh, the lever's too close. So we backed it out. I went back out. I had 0 brake fade for the rest of the day. And these rotors were hot. They were super hot. So, a lot of people say, oh, do this, do that. Really, I think of swapping the master as a nuclear option. Like if you have really small hands and you just can't reach the lever comfortably, it shouldn't really be an issue because when you get the quick shifter blipper, that makes it so you don't have to manually do it, maybe occasionally, but really that means you can kind of put your hand over the bar a little bit more and reach further out for the brake. I don't recommend swapping the OEM pads just because I like my customers getting their money's worth. The OEM pads are perfectly fine in my book. I'm sure there may be a couple that weren't as good, but this bike has had OEM pads this whole time and I've enjoyed using it. I like a progressive grab on my brakes, so I don't want it to be full brake right away, and maybe that's what those riders were looking for, is they want a right away instant quick brake. I like having a lot of travel through my brake lever so I can modulate. That's personal preference. I don't recommend swapping the rotor. I don't recommend swapping the master. The only thing I would do if you had any issues with your brakes is swap brake pads to obviously a Vezera or any of an SBS, whatever. They'll all be fine, but you'd be surprised how just backing your lever out a little bit should fix brake fade if you get it. And that's on most single caliper bikes. That could be an issue is if your lever is too close to your to the clip-on right here. It just gets hot because it doesn't have enough room to travel. So backing it out all the way, especially if you're at the racetrack, boom, look at that. It'll be fine. And then obviously the tires. So let's talk about that next. These are the OEM Aprilia tires. Look at this. No issues. These have done quite a few canyon runs. These have done 2 track days as of now. Right there, looking pretty good, right? These are basically Pirelli's, I would say like a Rosso equivalent. Maybe not quite as good. I think it's mostly mental though. These are totally fine. I've definitely got my money's worth out of them. And obviously, you should be able to get your money's worth out of them too. I dare say that a lot of times for newer riders, it's really just like it's easy to blame the bike when it's actually the rider that's working through stuff, or they haven't checked their tire pressure. You know, tire pressure is a big one. A lot of people just don't, and then they blame the tires, and it's like, well, it might be you haven't checked your tire pressure in like a year. That's really important. I haven't had any issues with these tires. Obviously, we check the pressures and make sure they're good, but I have absolutely sent it, and the front end on this bike has given me full confidence. Probably better confidence than my race bike, which is another plus in this bike's direction. Really, I mean, fantastic. I think the thing is people don't see like a Pirelli on the side of the tire and they go, oh, it's like some cheap knockoff. But these have been fine. Obviously, I'm sure upgrading, in my opinion, most OEM tires from the factories aren't as good anyway compared to a nice set of aftermarket tires. But I don't think you should switch them right away. I think you should ride these out, get your money's worth, and then grab a Pirelli Rosso or comparable. Now I wanted to touch on reliability. I've heard a lot of things in Europe, but this bike has been remarkably good here in the States. I mean, even compared to the RS660 launch, the 457's been really solid. Case in point, all of the RSs I've sold are just out on the road right now. People are riding them, enjoying them. And another thing to quell this is Aprilia does sell a extended manufacturer warranty called X-Care, and I recommend it to everybody. You can buy it up to a year from when you've originally purchased the bike, and these bikes come with a 2-year warranty. A lot of people don't realize that. 2 years, 2-year factory warranty, so you're good to go. And if you are worried, you can always grab another 2 years. This is directly from Aprilia. It also goes with the VIN. So if you sell this bike, you can use that as a bargaining chip, saying, hey, my motorcycle has extended warranty another 2 years on top of the 2. So thus you can get 4 years of factory warranty from Aprilia for your RS. I don't think for a sport bike it gets any better. For $900 extra, man, like, I've been riding motorcycles for a long time, especially sport bikes. That's as good as it gets, let me say, for motorcycle related stuff. So brake fade, tires, and reliability. I think I've covered all of those things. I have had 0 issues riding this motorcycle, and even when the brake fade did occur, because it did, people are not wrong about that, is an issue with a single caliper bike and having the lever too close. You just want to back it out. A lot of times also people will install aftermarket levers incorrectly, and you know, a lot of people don't adjust. You also need to adjust your slack whenever you do any sort of lever related things, because it's in the owner's manual too. You want to make sure that if you mess around with levers, if you remove them, you want to make sure you have got the right amount of slack. And if you're worried, you can always go to any motorcycle mechanic and they should be able to fix that for you. It's very important to make sure your slack is set correctly. Since these are a lot of new riders are picking this bike up, this is just something that even all of us at some point go, oh crap, like, how's my slack? And sometimes asking a master tech how it is and getting a thumbs up is just a great feeling. So That's kind of a side tangent on just motorcycles in general, but it is good. It is a good thing to go over. I wanted to go over chain maintenance. I recommend cleaning and lubricating the chain every, give or take, 800 miles or so. 800 to 1,000 is totally fine. That usually avoids the adjustment part of it, which is good, because that's what you don't want to have to do. Now, when you swap tires, you will have to adjust it to make sure the slack is correct. That's just motorcycle 101. So with all that said, addressing the reliability issues, which there isn't really any. I mean, every motorcycle has something usually. Getting 4 years of warranty really negates that. And on top of that, all the aftermarket options, accessories that you can add, i.e. quick shifter, if you want to make a loud vroom noise, exhaust, and a race map, just makes this bike chef's kiss. It is a really fantastic motorcycle. And, if you want to go up one, you've got the 660. If you want to go up two, you've got the RSP4. So one last thing I wanted to mention is addressing some of the things I've read online. And number one is if your battery is having any issues while it's sitting, like if it drains quickly, go ahead and check with your Aprilia dealer, because there are a couple of units had issues with their voltage regulators. And then on top of that, I do recommend upgrading to a lithium-ion battery. That will save you a lot of time, just because lithium-ion batteries are super nice. That's just me as a motorcyclist. They're nice. Good upgrade, usually worth the money. And then secondly, if you ever feel like your motorcycle, and this goes for all motorcycles, are having an issue, let's say like motor related or something like that, where you hear funky noise, it's always good to just check with a dealer and a technician. That way, in case it's nothing, they'll reassure you, and if it's something, they'll work on getting it fixed. The thing about the 457 is we're all balling on a budget here. It is so cheap to get that sport bike fun in a small package that's cheap on insurance and all that other stuff. I wholeheartedly recommend the RS 457, and I think it's just such a fun, phenomenal motorcycle, and I'm really, really glad it exists, because I don't think anyone thought, hey, we're going to make a ride-by-wire 400cc motorcycle that actually has good electronics. Here it is.